She went undercover as a cleaning lady in her own company. What she saw made her fire everyone the next morning. The air inside Baxter & Company Real Estate carried the usual mix of fresh coffee, cologne, and the sharp tang of disinfectant used to keep the glass and steel office looking pristine. The firm was one of the most successful in Scottsdale, Arizona, known for handling multi-million-dollar properties and catering to high-end clients. Every detail, from the marble reception desk to the leather chairs in the conference rooms, screamed success. Denise Carter should have felt pride every time she stepped through the glass doors. This company was hers, built from the ground up, deal by deal, late night after late night, sacrifice after sacrifice. She had poured her entire life into it, breaking barriers, proving doubters wrong. But now, she felt something else. Over the past 6 months, things had started slipping. The cracks were small at first. An agent quitting unexpectedly, a few clients walking away without explanation. But then came the complaints. At first, she dismissed them. A misunderstanding here, an overreaction there. But as they piled up, a pattern emerged. Agents behaving rudely, deals going sideways for no clear reason. Clients expressing frustration over the company's so-called lack of professionalism. It didn't make sense. Not in her company. Then came the tipping point. An old friend, someone who had trusted Baxter & Company for years, reached out directly. The words still burned in her memory. "Denise, I hate to say this, but your team, they're arrogant, unethical. They made me feel like I was just another check to cash. I had to go somewhere else." That call hit differently. This was personal now. She could have done what most CEOs do: call an internal audit, hire a consultant, send HR to investigate. But Denise had learned early in life that numbers on a report didn't tell the whole truth. People behaved differently when they thought no one was watching. So she made a decision, a drastic one. That night, when the last employees filed out, Denise didn't leave with them. Instead, she walked down to maintenance. The head janitor, an older woman named Lupe, raised an eyebrow. "Ms. Carter?" Denise gave her a tight smile. "Not tonight." She pulled her hair back, wrapped a simple headscarf around her head, and slipped into the cleaning crew's break room. Within minutes, the power suit was gone. The designer heels, replaced by worn-out sneakers. Her crisp white blouse was now hidden under a loose janitorial uniform, baggy enough to swallow her frame. Denise looked at herself in the smudged mirror. No one would recognize her like this. She gripped the mop handle, testing its weight. It had been years since she'd done this kind of work. But muscle memory had a way of kicking in. Tonight she wouldn't be Denise Carter, CEO. She'd be just another cleaning lady. And she was about to find out the truth. The hallways of Baxter & Company Real Estate looked different at night. The high-energy chatter, the fast clicks of expensive heels against polished floors, all of it faded after hours. What remained was the low hum of computers left on standby, the distant buzz of security cameras, and the faint sound of the cleaning crew working in the background. Denise Carter blended in effortlessly. She had swapped out power lunches for a mop bucket, corporate meetings for wiping down desks. No one paid her any mind. She was invisible. At first she focused on the work itself, the rhythmic swipes of the mop, the damp scent of industrial cleaning solution, the way dust clung to the edges of baseboards no one ever noticed. It was almost meditative. Then, the voices started. A group of agents gathered near the break room, their laughter sharp, careless. Denise kept her head down as she wiped the nearby counters, listening. "Can you believe that client today? Came in acting like he had money, but his watch was fake as hell. God, I hate these walk-ins. Waste of time. If you don't have at least 6 figures in your account, don't even breathe in my direction." Denise stilled her movements, gripping the rag in her hand. They weren't even whispering. Then, something else. A man in a suit, Kyle Tanner, one of her top executives, stepped out of his office, stretching his arms lazily. He didn't even glance at Denise as he walked past, stopping near a junior employee. "You'll learn, kid," Kyle said, chuckling. "The trick is making them feel like they matter while bleeding them dry. Classic real estate. You want to last here? Don't waste time on people who won't make you money." The intern shifted uncomfortably. "I mean, some of these people are just trying to find homes." Kyle scoffed. Yeah? And I'm trying to buy a new yacht. Guess which one matters more? The group erupted in laughter. Denise kept her expression blank as she moved past them, pushing the mop toward the executive offices. But inside, something was boiling. And then she heard something that nearly stopped her in her tracks. You know what the problem is? They're letting too many unqualified hires in. You know what I mean. Denise turned slightly, just enough to see Kyle smirking as he stirred his drink at the receptionist's desk. No one challenged him. No one told him to stop. Denise inhaled deeply, forcing herself to stay calm. She needed to see more. Denise forced her hands to remain steady as she pushed the mop down the hallway, her heart pounding in her ears. She had expected arrogance, maybe even incompetence. But this? Blatant corruption. Cruelty. Racism. She needed more than just a few bad conversations. She needed undeniable proof. As she reached the executive lounge, the door swung open, and two agents stumbled out, laughing. They didn't even glance at her. That guy actually thought I was going to show him the house, one of them snorted, shaking his head. Man pulled up in a busted Toyota talking about, I've been saving for years. I told him we had a showing tomorrow, gave him the wrong time, like, be serious. The other agent cackled. Hey, you're doing him a favor. If he steps foot in that neighborhood, the HOA is calling the cops before he even signs paperwork. Denise swallowed hard. These weren't just bad employees. These were predators. She continued cleaning, but this time her focus was razor sharp. She took mental notes, memorized names, faces, conversations. But the worst was yet to come. Through the glass of the main conference room, she spotted a few senior executives huddled together. Kyle Tanner was among them, along with two others, Nick Harris and Laura Whitmore. They had been with Baxter & Company for years, some of her highest earners. Kyle leaned back in his chair, tossing a folder onto the table. Another deal closed. Took an extra 20 grand for myself. Client didn't even notice. These people sign so many damn papers, they don't check a thing. Laura smirked, flipping through the contract. What about legal? Don't they audit these? Nick waved a hand. Please. Accounting only flags things if we don't split it right. That's why we do small cuts on multiple deals instead of one big one. Denise felt a cold anger settle in her chest. They were stealing. Openly, confidently, because they thought no one was watching. But then, something happened that sent a shiver down her spine. Kyle stood, stretching, and for the first time that night, his eyes landed on her. She froze. For a split second, she thought he recognized her. But then, oh, he muttered, rolling his eyes. Who let the janitors in this section? The others turned to look, their faces blank, disinterested. Nick snorted. Like they even understand what we're talking about. Laura waved a hand dismissively. She should be grateful. She's mopping the floors of people who make real money. They turned back to their discussion. To them, she didn't exist. Denise's fingers dug into the mop handle. She had seen enough. Tomorrow, everything would change. Denise didn't sleep that night. She sat in her home office, staring at the city lights outside her window, replaying everything she had seen. Every cruel remark, every unethical deal, every insult. She had built Baxter & Company real estate from the ground up with her own sweat and sacrifice. It was supposed to be a company built on integrity, respect, and excellence. But now, it had rotted from the inside out, and she wasn't going to let it continue. By sunrise, Denise was dressed for war. Not in disguise this time. She slid on a sleek black power suit, fastened the platinum watch around her wrist, and stepped into her designer heels. No more headscarves. No more sneakers. She wasn't coming in as a cleaning lady today. She was coming in as the boss. When she arrived at the office, everything was business as usual. Employees milled around, sipping overpriced coffee, chatting about weekend plans, completely unaware. Then, the front doors swung open, and Denise stepped inside. The click-clack of her heels against the polished floors was sharp, purposeful, and suddenly, everyone noticed. Whispers rippled through the office. A few people stiffened, their eyes darting to one another. Kyle Tanner stood near the reception desk, chatting with Nick Harris when he spotted her. His smug expression faltered for half a second before he recovered. "Denise," he greeted with a grin, straightening his tie. "Didn't know you were stopping by this morning. Everything okay?" She didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she strode past him, heading straight for the executive conference room. Employees exchanged glances as they followed, sensing something was off. When she reached the room, she turned slowly, scanning the faces around her. And then, she dropped the bombshell. "I was here last night," she said, her voice calm, level, but razor-sharp. Silence. "I was here," she repeated, pacing the room, letting her words sink in. "Not as your CEO, not as your boss, but as your cleaning lady." More whispers. A few nervous chuckles. Kyle let out a dry laugh, shaking his head. "Wait, you're joking, right?" Denise's eyes cut to him, and he immediately stopped laughing. She wasn't joking. She had heard everything, and she was done playing games. The room fell into a dead silence. Denise scanned their faces. Shock, panic, a few pale expressions. They knew they had been caught. "I was here," she repeated, slow, deliberate, letting each word settle like a stone in water. "I watched. I listened. And what I saw," she exhaled sharply. "Disgusting." Kyle Tanner shifted uncomfortably, but he forced a smirk. "Denise, I think there's been some—" She cut him off. "No, Kyle, there's been no misunderstanding." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. It carried the weight of authority, of finality. "I watched my so-called top agents mock clients behind their backs, refuse to show homes based on a person's appearance, and openly steal from the very people who trusted us." Her gaze flickered to Nick Harris. "You bragged about pocketing extra money from deals. Thought no one would notice." Nick visibly swallowed. Denise didn't stop. She wasn't done. She turned to Laura Whitmore. "And you? You let it happen. Encouraged it. Because in your own words, they don't check the paperwork anyway." Laura's face drained of color. Denise let the silence stretch. She wanted them to feel it. Then, she stepped back, folding her arms. "Every single one of you sitting at this table." She glanced out the glass walls at the agents peeking in, their curiosity laced with fear. "You're fired. Effective immediately." Gasps. A few stifled curses. Kyle shot up from his chair. "Denise, you can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious." She gestured to security, who had been waiting. Two uniformed guards stepped forward, expressionless, professional. "This is insane," Nick barked. "You'll tank the company." Denise let out a humorless chuckle. "Tank the company? You already did that." She leveled him with a glare. "I'd rather burn this place to the ground and rebuild from scratch than let parasites like you keep running it into the dirt." One by one, security escorted them out. Some cursed under their breath. Others looked stunned, like they had just woken up to a nightmare they never saw coming. Kyle was the last to leave. He turned at the door, anger flashing in his eyes. "This company was fine before you came along." Denise smiled. A cold, sharp thing. "And it'll be even better without you." The door shut behind them. For the first time in a long time, the air in the office felt clean. But there was still work to do. The office was quieter now. No more arrogant laughter. No more backhanded comments. No more people treating clients like numbers instead of human beings. Denise stood by the window in her office, watching the city move below. The weight of what she had done settled in her chest. Not regret, but relief. She had no problem rebuilding. She spent the next week personally reviewing every single employee file. Some staff, the ones who had kept their heads down, afraid to speak up, she met with individually. Those who had been complicit in silence but weren't actively corrupt got a second chance. But anyone who had been part of the problem, gone. She hired fresh talent, people who understood hard work, ethics, and the value of a client's trust. And within 3 months, the company was thriving again. Clients who had left, they came back. New clients, they could feel the difference. One afternoon, a junior agent, The same intern Kyle had mocked that night, stopped by her office. "Ms. Carter." He hesitated, stepping inside. She looked up, setting down her paperwork. "Yes?" He swallowed, then smiled. "Thank you for what you did." Denise met his gaze. A young professional who deserved a real shot. "You earned this," she said simply. "Just do the job right." He nodded, standing a little taller as he left. As Denise leaned back in her chair, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Because at the end of the day, business wasn't just about money. It was about the people. And now, she had the right people. In a world where power and greed often win, character still matters. Denise had built her company on values. And the moment those values were compromised, everything began to fall apart. But the most dangerous thing? Silence. The employees who let corruption thrive, who ignored the cruelty, who told themselves it wasn't their business. They were just as guilty. And if Denise had ignored the warnings, if she had brushed off the complaints, she would have lost everything. So here's the real question. If you saw something wrong in your workplace, in your community, in your life, would you speak up, or would you let it slide until it's too late? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe integrity still matters, hit that subscribe button.